I asked my community if they wanted me to show them how to paint some simple rocks, and the answer was overwhelmingly yes. So I'm gonna show you how to paint some simple rocks only using 2 colors. But I'm gonna go above that. I'm gonna show you how to paint 2 different versions of rocks using 2 different tools. One with a palette knife, which is perfect for what I think more closer rocks from your perspective, because they're gonna have thicker texture, which means they're gonna have more detail, which means they stand out more. Perfect for midground and foreground rocks. And I'm gonna show you how to paint rocks with a brush, which sometimes have less detail to them, which means they're gonna fit perfectly in the background, helping with perspective. The cool thing about this is, yeah, you only need 2 colors. You're gonna need one dark color, which in my case is gonna be blue, but feel free to use whatever color you want. Black, brown, blue, or any combination of that. And we're gonna need to use one bright color. For the sake of this tutorial, we're gonna use white because it'll blend in perfectly, but again, choose whatever bright color you want. So since we got the tools and the colors out of the way, let me show you how we're gonna do this. Painting rocks with a palette knife is really fun. I recommend using a smaller palette knife so you have more control, but if you don't have one, a bigger palette knife will do. Just use the smaller edge. Now pull your white paint down nice and flat across your mixing palette and cut across with your palette knife. Cut once with the small end of the blade and flip it over and cut once with the fat end of the blade. This will give you the opportunity to have more control for smaller areas with the small side of the blade, or if you want to cover a larger area, you can flip it over and use the fatter part of the blade. Now I already have an icy rock that I dropped in here before I started making this video, but when it comes to adding highlights to any sort of rock that you have, you first want to pay attention to your light source and make sure you add them on the correct side. This will add to the illusion of realism for your painting. Now, when you're painting highlights on rocks, it's just like painting highlights on top of a mountain, except I like to be less diligent. Rather than come down and cut across, I like to do small strokes and wiggle the knife back and forth to get the paint to break in different directions and fade the paint in different directions. This way I will have brighter highlights on one side, and then I can fade that white paint into the blue on the other side, creating midtones and shadows. Now, I personally love to work in smaller sections when I work on my rocks. I like to add a dab of paint here and there, pull my knife back, and look at how the light is dancing and playing across. This way it gives me more of a template to see where I need to take the next paint stroke or paint break in a certain direction. I try to think about how the rock would naturally lay within the environment with light and snow laying upon it, and how maybe erosion has cracked through the rock. Remember, you don't want to take away all the midtones and the dark, because that's what's going to make the rock stand out amongst the snow and the environment. So work in smaller sections and don't be afraid to push that paint into the midtone or the shadow color to get all these different effects to happen. With all your highlights in place, take the tip of your palette knife and pull a little bit of that highlight color over onto the shadow side. This will give your rock the illusion that it's 3-dimensional and has more depth and character in it. Now you can do one of 2 things when you finish off your rock. You can either blend the base of the rock and have it naturally flow into the environment of your painting, or you can put a plane in front of it, adding to layers of separation, adding to more depth within your painting. Whichever one you choose, make sure your brushstrokes follow the lay of the land. That'll help it settle more naturally within the environment. All right, let's move on to painting rocks with a paintbrush, and I want to take a quick moment. I'm going to paint all of my rocks with an angled shader. I find it to be the easiest brush due to that angular cut, and I recommend that you get one too. In fact, I did a video on it. You can check it out in the top right corner. I'm going to drop in just the quick shape of a rock here really quick. Now, when it comes to painting in rocks and the body of it, I have fun. I kind of just be a little loose. If you want jagged, make it more jagged. If you want smooth, make it more smooth. If you want round, make it more round. There's no right or wrong way to make rocks. Just make sure it looks like what you want for your environment. The only thing that you really should pay attention to when it comes to painting rocks is generally you want to make the top a little darker and pull that color down into your environment. So that way, if you are painting with something like oils, you can fade it naturally into the landscape, creating easy shadows that lay right underneath the rock, making your life a heck of a lot easier, trust me. Now, I personally love having a template, makes it easier for my eyes for when I have to shape rocks, which is why I'm going to use my angled shader with a little bit of titanium white and start dropping in a few little shapes here to make it easier for my eye for when I have to add more detail here in just a moment. With that same angled shader loaded up with a little more paint, I can start dropping in my highlight side, or in my case, where my snow is sitting on top of my rocks. Now, I personally love to start with soft, short brush strokes. It gives me more control, and I recommend you start there too. It also is way more forgiving. If you start with a big glob of a long stroke, that's way harder to fix. So go slow, go soft, and go short. Trust me, it'll help you in the long run. Then I also want you to think about where your light is cascading across your rock, or if anything is sitting on top of it, like snow in this example here. You want to make sure that you softly lay it in to where it makes sense for the environment. Also, don't cover all your midtones and don't cover all your darks. We'll get to that in just a moment. The nice thing about an angled shader is, yeah, it's way more forgiving, but allows you to easily grab paint and blend it naturally into the environment, which is huge for the base of this rock because it'll allow you to create natural shadows at the bottom, which will help you a lot. Or if you don't like those shadows, you can pull the environment up into the rock. Again, an angled shader is clutch, and I recommend you get one or use one. Let's go ahead and soften up our shadow side just a little bit. I'm going to use a very small, soft fan brush that's nice, dry, and clean. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of my highlight side and start to pull it over to my shadow side. Now, you want to make sure you don't eliminate all your shadows. That's what gives it that really strong characteristics and 3D dimension that we want to keep. I just want to wrap a little bit of that highlight over onto my shadow side, giving it a little bit more of a pop, making it look more natural in the environment. Now just anchor that rock into the environment by blending it into the plane that it's sitting on, or putting a plane in front of it to create another layer of separation. I want to take a minute and share with you my absolute favorite way to paint rocks, and that's using both a palette knife and paintbrush. Allow me to show you and explain why. I'm gonna drop in just the basic form of a rock here really quick. Not gonna give it too much thought because, again, rocks can be in many different shapes. Make whatever shape you want. Now that we have our basic rock shape in place, I'm gonna start out using the palette knife. I'm gonna use it the exact same way I just showed you. Use the short and the fat end of the blade for when I need them. I'm gonna use shorter strokes so I have more control, and I'm also gonna use that wiggle motion to create some awesome effects. With the palette knife, I'm going to pull my strokes in the direction that I think the highlights would be sitting, or my snow would be sitting on top of my rock. I also want to make sure that I don't destroy any of my midtones or shadows. I do want to leave gaps. If you want to accentuate your rock even more or give it more contrast, I recommend taking some pure blue or even darker blue or any darker shade and add it on the shadow side and allow it to break in the opposite direction. This will really give it a pop. Now I'm going to switch over to my angled shader and start blending just the base of my rock. This way it becomes naturally anchored within the environment. I generally like to start with my highlight side. I find that to be easier, but you do whatever you find best. But I do want to emphasize, when you do go to the shadow side, pull that underneath your rock. This is going to make a beautiful transition that looks like a natural shadow is sitting right underneath your rock, and you had to do almost no extra work to achieve it. Now I just have to finish off my awesome rock and blend it into the environment, aka my snow. And for that, I like to use two paint brushes. I like to use my angled shader and my fan brush. The angled shader is for putting in bigger, bolder brush strokes, whether it be the highlight side of the snow or the shadow side of the snow. Then I like to feather those in with the fan brush, which I find to be easier, more manageable, and I have more control. Plus, I can naturally fade out the bristles to create soft impacts on the snow or create just simple, soft impacts on the highlights. And there you go. We got the illusion of some simple rocks using two different tools and using only two colors. This is a simple way for any brand new painter out there that wants to add rocks to their landscape environment. Now, just to let you know, when I do really paint rocks, I actually like to use three colors. I like to use a base tone color, then I like to use a highlight and a shadow, and have those three work together. And that's the real way I think that you should paint rocks. And if you want to see a video on that, you know what you gotta do. Go down below, leave me a comment, let me know how this video helped you out. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you wanna know how to add more elegant snow and make it stand out within your painting like we have on this painting right here, you can check out the video over to my side. And I will catch you all later in the next video. Happy painting.